Planning and Zoning Commission at 6 p.m. On February 12th, 2014. Mr. Olgain, would you take roll call for us, please?
Absolutely. Chairman Woolley, Vice Chair Puttrick,
Present.
Commissioner Petty,
Present.
Commissioner Anderson,
Present.
Commissioner Reed.
Present.
We have a quorum.
You all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, the next item is a discussion and approval of the minutes from the November 7th meeting, the November 5th meeting. Have any comments or no? Motion to approve?
I make a motion that we approve the minutes for the regular meeting conducted on November the 7th, 2013, November the 21st, 2013, and December 5th, 2013.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, the minutes are approved.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to item number 5, the public hearings. We'll start with the first case, which is PZC 0114 GPA. You have a presentation for us?
Yes. Good evening, Vice Chair, members of the Commission, and just to note that Chairman Woolley, as you know, does plan on attending. He's running a little late, so should he come in between cases, we may take a recess and kind of adjust ourselves here. But anyhow, first on the agenda we have 2 minor general plan amendments tonight, and they're both being proposed by the same group, United Engineering Group. And I think what I can do is, since they're both within the area of they're both within the Magic Ranch annexation area, and they're very similar, and they're by the same applicant, representing essentially the same property entity, although legally they're slightly separate entities. I will go ahead and probably talk about them together, but they will require a separate public hearing on each and then a separate recommendation to the Town Council on each. So as noted, these are both minor general plan amendments. The first one, item A, is presentation, discussion, recommendation of an application by United Engineering Group on behalf of RMG Lucky Hunt LLC for a minor GPA to the town's general plan land use map to change the land use designation on approximately 11 acres from community commercial, or CC, to MDR, which is medium density residential 1. This change would facilitate a subsequent zoning amendment on the site, which is generally located on the west side of Hunt Highway at the Heritage Road alignment. And this, of course, we can do general plan amendments on properties prior to an annexation. Obviously, we have a planning area that's substantially larger than our 62 square mile corporate limits, but it will take the completion of the annexation to consider the approval ultimately of a rezoning or subdivision plats and that like. So subsequent steps are contingent upon the annexation being successful. The second case, item B, also by United Engineering, this time on behalf of Palms Magic Ranch 80 LLC, also a minor general plan amendment. In this case, they would like to change the land use designation on our general plan land use map on approximately 39 acres, or closer to 40 acres, from employment light industrial, or ELI, to medium density residential, MDR 1. Same thing. What they would like to do is change the land use map prior to annexation, and then after annexation come in and get their comparable zoning and amend the zoning as necessary. The first project that they have called that the reserve, and these two requests are extremely straightforward, so there's really not a ton to present on these, but here's the location of the site on the Hunt Highway corridor in the Magic Ranch area. And here is what the land use map shows on the top, and on the bottom is what they would like to do. They simply want to adjust the 11 acres that's on the front of their property from the community commercial designation to the residential designation, which the bulk of their property has. This will allow them to have a window onto Hunt Highway so that they can have monumentation, access, and a view into the development, which actually will be really nice because it's a nice piece of land with a little bit of topography, views of buttes in the area, and so forth. In this particular area, as you can see, all the red there is a lot of commercial that is planned. Most notably, there is still the Barclay and Fry's piece that's been out there for a while that they hold on to, and at some point will, adjacent to this project, develop a grocery store anchored shopping center. Also, there was state land that an agreement with their annexation was that most of their frontage in this area also was commercial. So there's quite a bit of commercial along this area, and that's why you have a recommendation from staff here supporting this change, because the 11 acres is not really going to have any impact in any way on the future of how this area develops, other than to positively affect how they can develop a subdivision and get a window out to the street. And then, of course, the other part of the equation is if they can develop a successful subdivision and add the rooftops, those folks will then, in turn, facilitate the need to build the shopping in the area that's designated for commercial. The second request, also within the Magic Ranch annexation, and this piece is actually part of the Magic Ranch PAD in the county, and you can see this is along the Arizona Farms Road corridor, and then on the other side of the railroad from the existing northern part of the Magic Ranch development. And also immediately to the north is where there's a mini storage facility that I'm sure that you all have seen out in that area. Oh, and then also as a point of reference, Christ the Victor Church is also just on the other side of the railroad track fronting Arizona Farms Road. And our land use plan that shows the property as industrial, but in the county it's actually residential, and they have existing hard zoning on the property for residential. So what we're trying to do in this case is just to make our land use plan consistent with what the zoning is already in the county, the land use plan and the zoning. Because when they come in, they'll get comp zoning, which will be single-family residential, and we don't want them to have zoning that's inconsistent with the general plan. On this particular property also, they see some opportunities of maybe upgrading the subdivision plat, and on the north part of the property, they've indicated a willingness or a commitment to us actually verbally to dedicate 4 acres to the town for a future fire station site. So should this annexation go through, we're going to see a lot of activity out in this area, and initially get the site in place, and then plan for a temporary fire station, and then other infrastructure along the way. So those are the two cases, and you have a positive recommendation from staff on both of them, with the findings noted in the reports. Because they're minor GPAs, you're really not going to see a lot of stipulations adjusted to them, because that's the nature of general plan amendments. And both require a public hearing, as I said, and we'd be happy to address any questions you may have.
Anybody have any questions?
Yeah, I guess I have a question. On this particular case right here, so Victory Lutheran Church would be just to the north, right?
Yes, the church.
Right off of Arizona Farms, right?
Yeah, absolutely. The church is fronting Arizona Farms Road. It goes back pretty deep, but it's just on the other side of the railroad, so it's a little bit north and west of this particular location.
As you follow Apollo, I think it is, you follow Apollo, there's a church there, or going to be, which would be
There's another planned church.
St. Michael's of the Archangel.
Exactly, exactly. So there's
That's my
existing church.
question, is, I know historically, churches can be in residential areas, but do they need, is that zoning fine then? I guess that's my question.
Yes, the churches now, along with some other uses, even in schools as well,
Like an
can generally
institution?
go in any district, assuming that they meet all the standards for the height and the setbacks and the parking and engineering and things like that. They actually can go in any zone.
Okay. And then as you follow Apollo around up to Warner, and Warner crosses Hunt Highway, right across there is the first parcel you were talking about then, right? That's vicinity of that area, right? Okay.
Yeah, yeah, you have, and both the properties, well, because they're vacant land, they're really hard to distinguish if you're driving by them. This one's probably a little bit easier, the second one, because if you go right behind the mini storage, you can see this one. But the other one is really hard to interpret where exactly that frontage is along Hunt Highway, since there's no development yet. But
Okay. And MDR1, would that, can you give me some idea of the density, like 8 units per acre, or?
what they're planning on both of them is probably a density of about, actually, MDR1 gives them the option of going 4 to 8, but on both of these developments, they're looking at a density of closer to 4 units to the acre, and that would reflect also what the Magic Ranch zoning has on the second property already. On the other property, going 4 to 8, really, that one has the topographical issues and some slopes in there. They'd like to hit 4. I would imagine once they figure in the infrastructure and where they can build and can't build, they probably would be probably closer to 3.2 or so.
Okay. Thank you. Anybody else?
Other than the one public comment or outreach that was noted in the other case, the Magic Ranch case, has any other public come forward to you guys?
Nope.
Thank you.
Okay, if you have no further questions, I'll open the public hearing. And any
On
public-
on item A first.
Item A first, and only A. And any public have comment? Okay, lacking comment, I will close the public hearing on A and open the public hearing on B. Any public comment? Okay, lacking public comment, I'll close the hearing on B. And at this time, I'll ask for a motion.
I'll make a motion for case A, the PZC-01-14-GPA, that we forward to the town council a favorable recommendation.
A second.
We have a motion and a second to forward approval to the town council. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, if you will, I see the mayor is sitting back here, and Bill is here, so you can tell them that we recommend approval of A.
Tara's here too.
And let's do B, as long as we're at it. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion for public hearing B, case PZC-08-14 for Magic Ranch 80, that we forward a favorable recommendation to the town council.
A second.
We have a motion and a second to forward an approval on item B. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, would you forward to the town council our recommendation for approval on item B?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, moving on to C. We have a presentation on item C.
Vice Chair, members of the commission, we do. Item C is case PZC 614 CUP for Ultra Health LLC. It's a presentation, discussion, recommendation for a conditional use permit request by Duke Rodriguez of Ultra Health LLC on behalf of River Bottom LLC to allow for proposed medical marijuana dispensary on a highway business commercial B2 zone property located at 2501 North Pinal Parkway Avenue in Florence, Arizona. As indicated in there, that is referring to the current River Bottom Grill site, and as you can see depicted on the subject map. And I think that we've done a few of these cases in the past, so really I'd like to just kind of cut through a lot of the history, the evolution of how we got to this point, and just stick to the fundamentals of this case. It is a use permit case, so what we're looking at is fundamentally how the town believes this site is appropriate or inappropriate for this particular use at this particular location. So that's all we're looking at is this use at this location. And the report goes into a substantial amount of history and specifics on their business plan. You got a huge narrative also that came and really speaks to the specific of their business plan and their security plan and their operation and who's doing what. But we're really not going to get into that. Like I said, we're fundamentally going to get into that what they like to do is propose at this location is take the existing building and make some modifications to the building and also substantial modifications to the site, which we'll get into a little bit more in the companion design review case. And they would like to utilize this building as permitted under the state law and per local ordinances for a medical marijuana dispensary. So our job here tonight, as we kind of bypass a lot of the peripheral information here, really is to look at the things that we look at when we consider a conditional use permit. Look at the proposed use and the site and the surrounding locations. You can see in this particular aerial map, which I hope is coming up on your monitors as well for your viewing pleasure, that you can see, and as you know, because most of us have been to the river bottom before, generally undeveloped land all around this property. It is Zone B2. It's a commercial property. The general plan also designates it as a commercial corridor. If you go a little bit further beyond the immediate boundaries of this site, a little bit further north, you'll see the Florence Immigrant and Refugee Rights Facility, a little kind of nondescript white building that's up there. Obviously, if you go a little bit beyond that to your west, you'll see the Immigration Facility, Caliente Florence Gardens, etc., Florence Military Reservation. But in general, this area, there really are no developed neighbors adjacent to this site. You do have Price Road, you have the Gila River, and you have a lot of undeveloped desert in this area. Property is already developed as a restaurant, so it has established access, which they would improve with this application, because right now it's kind of, you can come right off of the state highway anywhere you want, and parking is loosely defined on the property. With this proposal, they'll continue to have access off of the state highway, but they will narrow the access down into a defined driveway and designate some of the circulation and parking on the site a lot better than it is today. We also need to look at what we believe would be the anticipated impacts on adjoining and surrounding properties. And I think we kind of have addressed the first part of that in the fact that there really are no developed properties within close proximity to this immediate location. And then also we went through in our code, we have the required separations is of a medical marijuana dispensary and other uses, and you can see that they comply with all those separation distances. Again, by looking at the map, you can see that there are no schools or libraries or churches or residential communities and things like that, and also complying with the state statute requirement, which actually is less restrictive than ours at 500 foot, so they're still remain in compliance with that. So they do meet the requirements. Also, when we look at a conditional use permit, you can see in the report that we do have the opportunity to address other items, such as how the yard is developed, the walls, the parking, the improvements, etc., in order to potentially make the use even more compatible or appropriate for that particular location. In addition, any conditional use permit that's approved, there are automatic conditions that are imposed on it in the fact that the conditional use permit is recorded and it is binding on that property, unless there are stipulations that deal with the transferability of the use permit or a time limit of the use permit. This is a conditional use permit, so it is subject to a public hearing here tonight, and with your recommendation, either for or against, that recommendation will be sent to the mayor and town council. That meeting right now is tentatively scheduled for March 17th, and they will also conduct a public hearing. The mayor and council will conduct a public hearing, and we'll have action that night on that item, unless there's a continuance or another path of action. But on a use permit, there's not the need for the typical 2 meetings at the council. Staff has reviewed this case in consideration of it being presented to the Planning Commission and the Town Council, and we have found that a medical marijuana dispensary is a conditionally permitted use in a highway business commercial B2 zoning district, subject to complying with applicable locational criteria. Access, circulation, and parking for the subject use conform to applicable codes. The subject use is consistent with the Town of Florence 2020 General Plan. The subject site exceeds the town minimum locational criteria for medical marijuana dispensaries. And there's no evidence to suggest that this use would have a negative impact on adjacent or surrounding land uses if the conditional use permit is properly conditioned and the use complies with all applicable local ordinances and state statutes. Therefore, by acting on this use permit, you would be accepting the findings of the staff, and ultimately council would be as well if there was a favorable motion on this case. And based on those findings, staff recommends that the Planning and Zoning Commission send the Town Council a favorable recommendation for this use permit on the site, described here on your map and as Exhibit A, which is this exhibit that you see here, subject to the conditions that are noted in the report. And there's 13 set conditions, and 14 would be if there was any additional conditions to add to this particular application. But I would have to say that we've worked with Duke Rodriguez here and Rocky Pawa again on this application, and other members of their team, and we've had a very fruitful, productive discussions and process getting to this point. They really have addressed a lot of the issues, concerns that initially developed, and as you'll see in the design review application, have dealt with the issues of modifications to the building, landscaping, parking, drainage, and just a whole gamut of things will be considered under that application. And we do feel that they have put together a thorough application for your consideration this evening. And with that, I'll let you move on to the next steps here.
Okay. Anybody have any questions?
Yes, I have a question. In August, we were presented by staff a modification to our marijuana code that said no dispensaries would be located on the major highways. Now, I know that went to town council, but it was it was tabled. So where do we stand on that? Is this in conflict with that?
Well, that is a good point to bring up, Member Anderson. And that item, you're right, you did send a favorable recommendation on that particular code item. It went to council and it was continued indefinitely. So unless it's brought back up to the council, it is essentially a dead item. Council, since it was continued, there has not been a request to place that item back on the agenda. I think in part because around the same time we started working with the applicant on these applications, and in all fairness, with an active application, we decided to pursue the application and see how that went. But as I stated as well, it wasn't continued to a specific date, and there has been no recommendation to set that item back for a council agenda.
One other question. I notice this is adjacent to the Gila. Is that public land, or what's the classification of the land? This is adjacent to the Gila River. Is that public land, or what's the classification on that land?
As land ownership, I don't have a map with me, a land ownership map with me, but I believe in that area, the state land department and BLM own a lot of the land along the Gila River, and actually a lot of the land that's east of Highway 79. But it could, you know, if you go west, you'll find that a lot of the land, the town has ownership, private properties have ownership, so it can vary. And directly south of here, I'm inclined to believe that it's state land in this location, but I can't say that for sure.
So there'd be no conflict?
No, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, I had a couple of questions. We discussed before, now I'm trying to remember, he stole one of my questions about that. I wrote notes.
Speaking to the mic, sir.
Yeah, as soon as I can.
We can't hear you.
Oh, let's see, the first one was in the brief, we talk about we're going to tear down what is the existing grill and do a new building.
Well, let me clarify that. They're going to modify the building to a certain extent, but they are not going to demolish the entire building. They are going to maintain a substantial portion of the building. The remainder of the portion, they're also going to add some canopies and some other architectural features that will make the building look really completely different than it does today. But they will maintain an adequate portion of the building to accommodate this the medical marijuana dispensary.
Okay, and speaking of dispensaries, is there not a dispensary in Coolidge?
I believe, Vice Chair, members of the Commission, that there is a medical marijuana dispensary in
Falls within the 25 miles?
Coolidge. Yes, but that doesn't prohibit somebody from being able to locate one here. What it does is, the law says that an individual cannot grow plants in their home if they are within 25 miles of a dispensary. So that's where that comes into play, but it doesn't prohibit another dispensary from being located. And then also, this is a separate, what they call the CHA area. So for this district, there is one dispensary that is allowed for the Florence zone.
Okay, and I remember from a meeting earlier, I guess last year now, that we're looking at 89 people that this is going to serve.
Well, Vice Chair, members of the Commission, I think they've indicated a potential number in their report, but one thing to keep in mind is that with the medical marijuana dispensary, when you have your card, I don't believe there's a limitation on what dispensary that you go to. So within this area, currently, yes, there may be 100 or more or less folks that have a card. Some of those folks might go to Phoenix or Eloy or Casa Grande, and some of the folks in those cities might actually come down to here to use this dispensary.
Okay, I just wanted that for clarification so everybody knows what the field looks like. In that case, I think we're ready for, you got one?
At the time of writing the report, there was no opposition or
Yeah.
positive comments for, and besides what might happen tonight at the public hearing, has anything else come forward?
Vice Chair, members of the Commission, Gilbert and I have not received any favorable or negative comments on this case.
Okay. I'm opening the public hearing on this case. And any public that wishes to speak. And please state your name and address for the record, please.
Attorney Alan K. Wittig, P.O. Box 1441, Queen Creek, Arizona. I'm here on behalf of the Santan Valley Substance Abuse Coalition. We are totally against this dispensary, and I'll try and make it brief, although attorneys like to talk. First of all, the Office of the National Drug Control Policy, in a study in 2012, found that 1 in 10 high school students got their marijuana from someone with a medical marijuana card. Now, this facility is also at the entrance of Florence. Basically, if we put a medical marijuana dispensary there, I say we're branding Florence. Whoever comes into Florence sees that. That brands Florence as, okay, that's a place I need to go for my medical marijuana. That doesn't sound good. That's not family friendly. If I'm, as a family man, I'm coming down to Florence, and you know we have winter visitors also. We're coming down to Florence, and we see the medical marijuana. Well, you know what? I'm going to turn around and go back the other way. I don't want to be there. Let's look at Country Thunder. Okay, Country Thunder is a pretty good draw for the city of Florence. We're going to give a bad impression to the attendees. I mean, Willie may like it, but most of the attendees are there for a good time and not for marijuana. This adds problems to the law enforcement besides the alcohol problem at Country Thunder. Now not only do we have the alcohol problem, we have the marijuana problem. And yeah, I'm not saying that there's not a marijuana problem that they have to deal with now, but this will exacerbate that whole problem. Per federal statute, marijuana is still illegal. I didn't write down the name of the show that I was watching, but I was watching a show that was, it was kind of a reality show. They were following a person who had a medical marijuana dispensary, and he was traveling all over his area trying to find where he could get medical marijuana. And the problem is he had been arrested 8 times by the federals, and he couldn't find anybody to supply the marijuana to him. So he's going all over creation. And I think it was mentioned earlier, let's look at the federal installations near the dispensary. So we have Immigration Holding Facility, we have the National Guard Armory. I would be very surprised if we would not have a very strong DEA presence here in Florence if this use was allowed. And I'm talking a strong area. There's no treatment for substance abuse in 14 counties in this state. But yet, we put in these facilities. I find there's something fundamentally wrong with that. Fundamentally wrong.
I'm going to have to cut you short. I forgot to mention, and my apologies, that we're going to restrict everyone to 3 minutes, and in order to get through all of the people that will want to speak. So if you could wrap up real quick. And
I will, and thank you. I would just ask that the council look at the Office of National Drug Control Policy. Again, they did a study. Also, the American Cancer Society, American Glaucoma Foundation, National Pain Foundation, National Multiple Sclerosis Societies, and other medical societies do not support smoked medical marijuana. The American Medical Association has called for more research on the subject. So,
thank you, sir.
thank you.
Anyone else?
Good evening. My name is Bill Wargo. I live at 76 South Agua Fria Lane, Casa Grande, Arizona. I am the chairman of the Casa Grande Alliance, which is a coalition of 58 agencies, law enforcement, prevention, and treatment. Our mission is to build partnerships and work together for prevention of substance abuse and violence among adults and youth. At our meeting last Monday, we voted unanimously for someone from our organization to come and express our objection to this being granted. One of the biggest things that we deal with is trying to educate youth on the dangers of all drugs, especially marijuana, because that is the gateway drug to all the other illegal drugs. I spent 33 years in law enforcement, 21 of those doing drug investigations. And we feel that this sends a very mixed message. I know that the horse is out of the barn for medicinal marijuana. We also all know that within about the next year or so, there's going to be an initiative to create recreational use of marijuana in the state of Arizona. It's well known. Here's some statistics from Colorado that before they went to the recreational use, just when they had medicinal marijuana, traffic fatalities overall went down 16%. Traffic fatalities involving drivers testing positive for marijuana increased 114%. Teen current regular use of marijuana increased by 10.7%. ER admissions related to marijuana illnesses increased. Age group 0 to 5 years old increased 200%. 6 to 12 increased 60%. 13 to 14-year-olds increased 92%. Those figures come from the Colorado HIDTA, or High Intensity Drug Trafficking report. As that other gentleman mentioned, 1 out of 10 teens in the recent Arizona survey admitted in the survey that they got their marijuana from a marijuana card holder. I do investigations at these prisons. I'm a private investigator under contract with the U.S. Marshal Service. And I find it ironic that Florence, Arizona, which is the home to untold number of correctional facilities, houses individuals, many of whom have drug problems. And the overwhelming majority of those start out as a gateway drug of marijuana before they went on to other illegal drugs. I think we're sending the wrong message to our youth, especially when we have on a main highway coming into the city of Florence a medical marijuana dispensary. It's a little hard for us to convince kids that marijuana is bad for you when it is advertised as medicine. We're trying to deal also with prescription drug abuse amongst teens and amongst youth, and it's the same problem we run into there. Well, it must be safe because a doctor prescribed it. If somebody prescribed it, it's safe. It's not safe, especially for youth. Thank you.
Thank you. How do we do?
Hello. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. My name is Miguel Olivas. I'm a resident of Coolidge, Arizona, and I'm here as a private citizen. The days of the Nixon war on marijuana, they seem to be coming to a close. The opportunity for these people who are against the facility entering, planning and zoning, had their choice to make their argument when the people of Arizona voted for the law. They also have a state legislature to go to. The planning and zoning meeting tonight is not to discuss the bias for or against medical marijuana. The only thing this Planning and Zoning Commission is to vote on tonight is whether or not they've decided that this use is permitted in this location. I understand all the arguments. We've been through the arguments here before. But the truth of the matter is the duty of this commission tonight is just to vote on the facts, not on the biased slant. We've heard these things time and time again. We've moved this location. This location has been moved several times. Why? Because nobody wanted to fight against schools. Nobody wanted to affect children. Nobody wanted to make sure that, let me backtrack. Everybody wanted to make sure that the safety of the public was an important thing here. So, find it in your hearts to let's not think of the biases regarding the issue of marijuana, but rather let's stick to the facts. Is it allowable in the location? Yes. Is it up to the town council to go through all this other stuff? Yes. So I only ask tonight, as a private citizen, that you look at it favorably and allow them to come to their vote on March 17th. I appreciate your time, and may God continue to bless the town of Florence.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Jennifer Meadows, 647 East Palomino Way in Santan Valley. I'm here tonight representing the Florence Unified School District. I'm an 8th grade social studies teacher, and it's just something that we don't want in our school district. I know we talked about the whole drug thing, and I said, as a social studies teacher, I can do the pro and con. I see both sides. But with what we're fighting with our students in the Florence Unified School District, we don't need this building in our district. Let them go to Coolidge. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jean Porter, Vistas Hermosus, up in the condos. Before I go into the discussion of marijuana and the location that you're proposing, I'd like to make a comment on the sound system that you people are using. I know I have a hearing problem, but I didn't hear anything that this gentleman said. And when you folks spoke up there, I don't know whether your sound system is so bad or you're very timid in saying what you are thinking or what you don't want to be on record. But to me, I would think this building should have some sound system that a person could hear, whether they have a hearing problem or whether they sit in the back. And that is a very bad reflection on the town of Florence, that I come to a meeting and I can't hear. If I didn't have this piece of paper and that up there, I wouldn't know what was going on. I am opposed to having this marijuana in that location. For one reason, Highway 79 is probably one of the most treacherous, dangerous roads in the state of Arizona. Another thing, backing in and out of that location just before you get to the bridge is very treacherous. If you watch the people that are coming and going at the river bottom, you'll know that's a very hazardous location. And I'm from Florence Gardens and Vista Hermosa. And that is too close of an entrance to our senior citizens, not even to mention Caliente, that is much closer than we are. And you have this location here where you've got senior citizens coming down the road that I'll say are not always the best drivers in the world. but you have people coming in and out of that small location, and on the most dangerous road, one of the most dangerous roads, 79. Please do something about your sound system so that when I come, I can hear what you're saying and what anybody else is saying. Thank you.
Thank you. Can you hear me? I'd have to chew on it.
Hi, my name is Tara Walter. I'm actually speaking as a council member. I'm not for or against right now voicing that. I'm up here just communicating that we have received some emails that I know that you guys were not CC'd in on. One of them, for example, stated, I oppose granting a permit for a marijuana dispensary anywhere in town. Whether or not there is any true medical benefits to this drug is a moot point. The fact remains that this drug is illegal under federal law. You took an oath to defend the Constitution of America and to uphold the laws of the country until such a time that the federal law prohibiting marijuana is repealed. I see no way that you can approve such a permit. We did receive a few emails, and in the future, possibly residents can also include planning and zoning in on these emails, so you also receive the information.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Denise Kohlert, 802 McFarland Boulevard, Florence Gardens. I have gotten up in front of the town hall when this was going on for this poor man. He has moved and he has moved. All he's asking is for conditional use permit. And all the stuff, like the gentleman from Coolidge said tonight, is all biased opinions. And I really think what you need to do is this a good spot? By the law that was passed in Arizona by the majority of the voters. The federal government has told Arizona they will do nothing to anybody that opens a marijuana dispensary as long as it's being run by the rules, which this gentleman has said numerous times he's going to. So please go to the issue of, is it in a good spot? Does it meet the criteria of the law and our rules here in the town? And let it be that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Elizabeth Ardilla, Johnson Ranch. I'm an 8th grader at Walker View. I go to the Florence District, and as a close to high schooler, an 8th grader, I know that, okay, so yes, marijuana can help, but it's too close to our district. As a high schooler, as being in the finals, I can say that I'm stressed. Marijuana helps stress. I can easily go to a doctor and ask for a prescription for stress. He can easily give me a prescription for marijuana. And with the dispensary so close and so close to our school, with so many students that could be addicted to marijuana, it can be like, in a sense, they can, get into the habit of being abusive to this, where they can get to a point where they can commit a crime just to get this. And being so close to our district, it can be a gateway for our students to be able to enter this and just like try getting it in a sense. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I feel like I'm getting to know you guys. My name is Kimberly Havlet. I have a patient support program called Southwest Arizona Patient Alliance. First of all, you know, this is, like the gentleman said, this is a hearing on a conditional use permit. It's not a morality hearing. There are dispensaries, they've been operating in the state of Arizona for a year. There has been no information about it affecting any school districts. affecting any students. And the fact of the matter is that cannabis use has been reduced. And it has been reduced in every state that has a medical marijuana law. That is the fact. There is a very good group called Law Enforcement Against Prohibition. They have some very good statistics that I encourage you to go online and read about how it affects a community. I'm a parent. I'm a mother of a child who is very vulnerable. He's disabled. I don't fear the medical marijuana dispensaries. I fear the dealer on the street. And in a community where you have medical marijuana, where patients can go, and let's be clear, when a patient is ill, a lot of times, I don't know if you all have handicap service to Coolidge, but I think it's extremely uncompassionate to suggest that somebody that's disabled hop on a bus or something and drive 25 miles for what is legal in the state of Arizona. Every community was given a CHA. Florence was given a CHA. The people of the state of Arizona have spoken, and it's not up to us to be the moral police. It's up for us to decide, or for you to decide, about the conditional use permit. And I would just please ask you to do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Brian Foster, 24051 North High Dunes Drive, Florence, Arizona. Mr. Vice Chair and members of the Commission, I appreciate the opportunity to appear before you tonight. I appear before you as a father with 4 kids attending Florence Unified School District, with 2 teenagers, Alec and McKenna, who attend Florence High School. I am also an employee of Florence Unified School District and also a proponent of the annexation of my home into the town of Florence. So I think I offer a unique interest in today's conversation with all these results that affect my family directly. As I represent Florence Unified School District tonight, please know that I stand as a voice for over 8,000 students in 12 different schools. Florence Unified School District strives every day to put kids first. All of our decisions and actions revolve around doing what's best for our kids. We recognize the responsibility we have to help our students make appropriate choices. Ms. V from the National Institute of Health summarizes the challenges we face in the developing minds of our youth. The human brain does not fully mature until the early 20s. Among the last areas to develop are those that govern impulse control and planning. As a normal part of growing up and understanding how the brain develops in our kids, we know that they might be more adventurous or willing to take chances that involve risky behaviors, which includes drug use. Our district has long embraced a zero-tolerance culture regarding illicit substances or drugs. The medicinal marijuana dispensary sends a mixed message that clouds the dangers of marijuana and its usage by our teens. In efforts to combat the horrifying statistic put out by the U.S. Health and Human Services that 44% of high school graduates will have tried marijuana at least once, we are introducing a study in cooperation with Arizona State University with a program called Keeping It Real. Our cooperation with ASU involves educating and studying with students and parents alike about the dangers of drug use, including marijuana. Now, the proponents are going to tell you education is good. Communication about the dangers is paramount. That's where we all agree. However, education is but one part, but ultimately, proximity is the looming variable. Proximity equals tolerance, albeit an acceptance of the documented research dangers that exist with marijuana usage with our teens. Proximity has been the question in our minds since the initial consideration of this dispensary anywhere within the town of Florence. Although the considered location has moved further away from our schools, we believe proximity still remains the question. If this dispensary is approved anywhere within our town boundaries or its presence, it runs contrary to the culture we have worked so hard to establish with our kids. There is a proud tradition that you have built here in Florence. The impact of the decision will not be known today. Flash forward 5 years from now. How will we look? Will the 8th graders and upcoming high school students fall victim to the permissions that this dispensary's existence allows? Well, I hope not. I hope the town's values continue along with ours. one that is known for protecting young minds and families together. The idea of safety has been brought forth tonight, and part of your role is to consider that safety. Our position related to proximity and the research that supports that would suggest that safety has not been answered with regard to the impact to our children. Today, an approval of the dispensary will prove contrary to that protection of our kids. We hope that your legacy in years to come reflect a strong commitment to our kids over any financial gain that might take place. We all want Florence to grow, but not at the expense of our kids. I appreciate your service and your time tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is April Meadows. I currently attend Poston Butte High School in the Florence School District. And I just want to say that while medical marijuana does have its benefits, there are many harms from it. I've known a few people that I grew up with, and they have fallen victim to marijuana, and just watching them kind of fade away, it's been tough. And I just think that adding another site that shows support of this drug it'll convince people that maybe this drug is okay. It's okay, but is it really worth it? Is it really worth watching people who don't need this drug using it recreationally? And that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
My name is Duke Rodriguez. I represent the applicant based out of Scottsdale, Arizona. I know we only have a limited amount of time, so it's kind of hard to address all the questions, but back to the issue about this specific location, because we could spend time talking about, I could tell you that there are 40,000 cardholders. How many of those 40,000 cardholders should show up and say why we need these medicines? They are cardholders because they have a medical condition. They've been attested to by their physician, their caregiver. They need this medicine. I don't want to say anything anyone has said about the kids. I'm a parent. I've got a 13-year-old child. I've operated hospitals, I've operated clinics, I've operated physician group practices. It was a hard decision for me to understand the importance of why this was medicine. I grew up in a period where we were told, just say no to drugs. I always thought this was an evil, evil plant, evil drug, and it's a gateway drug to every problem we can imagine. It isn't that. It's medicine. And there are 40,000 cardholders who have legitimately gone to their caregiver and says, I need these medicines. As to kids, absolutely. Should not be in the hands of kids. Thankfully, the state of Arizona has a very controlled model. In the state of those 40,000 cardholders, there are only 50 minors under the age of 18 who are then administered and managed by their caregiver, which is generally their parent. The DEA, I've heard the DEA is going to come down here and enforce rules. That is not true. The DEA has come out with a very specific memorandum saying these are the things we're concerned about, and we kind of categorize it as the 8 deadly sins. If you sell to kids, it is wrong. If you have rules that are not enforceable, if you have noncompliance, it is wrong, and we will intervene. That is correct. And everything we have for this specific site will be in compliance. The reality is in this state, 99 sanctioned CHAWs have been approved. 89 have already been established and are operational today. Those 89 communities, counties, cities could not have all been wrong. I went before some of the councils, one of the most strictest conservative councils you can imagine. I've heard the same words, and I don't want to say you're wrong. Some of the things you say are absolutely correct, but they're not completely the whole truth. We know there are risks with anything when there's a risk of dependence. There's risk with prescription drugs. I would argue prescription drugs are a worse situation than medical marijuana. I would argue in some cases alcoholism may be a worse. There is no addiction to marijuana. There is dependence, and dependence is based upon each individual patient and their abuse of such medications, be it OxyContin or be it medical marijuana. One thing that the state of Arizona did well, and the citizens voted for, was to have a true medical marijuana program. Thus, they approved these CHAWs. I don't want to go back in time and give you a primer, but it's important to kind of realize where we got to and why this is at where we are today. You're not at the beginning. You're at the first ending of this first phase of 99 CHAWs being established. 89 are in place now. I've been to those communities. Call Clifton, Arizona, a very small town. Had the same kind of hearings. And I listened to the city manager says, you know what, Duke? A year later, it works. There hasn't been more crime. Police are happier that it works. It's helped us deal with problems we had before about random drug dealers in the street, people growing their own marijuana. It legitimized for those patients who needed access to real medicines. It got it clean. I always hear these, I've been to at least a dozen of these sessions, and I don't want to criticize anybody's right to speak. But often, 9 out of 10 times, you're going to have the opposition. Why? Because they can stand up freely and say it. But you can't have the patient who says, by the way, I have a medical condition. They have a right to their privacy due to HIPAA, but they're not going to be here and tell you, I need it. But you have to respect their constitutional rights to get the meds that they need. I've listened to all the questions. I've heard that it's illegal. I'll tell you today, go Google Congress. 14 members of Congress went before Congress today and filed a statement saying, Mr. President, take it off of Schedule 1. We can talk about the history of why it's on Schedule 1, but the reality, it's more of a political and economic decision, not because the medical marijuana itself is dangerous. Public population, I'll just close real quickly. If you look at public sentiment, 60% of the population, adult population, believes in the legalization of marijuana, and that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about medical marijuana. When you ask the general adult voting population, what about medical marijuana? I think the number is either 72 to 80%. I think the public has spoken its mind. I think this facility is going to be done in a very professional manner, and we're going to comply with all local and state rules. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. How are you guys doing tonight? My name is Randy Rosane. I own the River Bottom Grill. I've owned it for 11 years. I repossessed it 4 years ago when it was River Bottom Saloon. My wife and I made an attempt to change the image. We're talking about branding in this town. We're branded as a bad biker bar, knife fights, that type of thing. We still have that old reputation, believe it or not, after all these years. 15% of our gross revenue comes from the town of Florence. The rest I have to make in 3 months, the rest of the year. Before the Ultra Healthcare got in touch with us, we had planned to close River Bottom this year because it's simply not making it. And, as a businessman, I've had a few businesses over the years and stuff. That has caused me to look at this site for what it is as a restaurant, and the problem I run into also, I'm landlocked. I'd have to buy some land next door to expand my parking, which I can't afford to do. In the last 4 years, as hard as we've worked, and my wife and I have worked 50 to 60 hours a week, year-round, I've lost $70,000 trying to make something go. I know there's people like Bill Hawkins knows that we want to improve this town. And we've made a great effort out there, and unfortunately, we don't have the community support. And we're not the only one that suffers from that. My good friend Charlie's no longer here because of the pressure he has in his own restaurant business. My friend Amos Hawkins isn't here because he never got a chance to use his card. Might have contributed to his well-being a little bit more. But River Bottom will close. I can no longer afford to keep it open. So here's a chance to have a good, legitimate company come in, give it a good look. They're not going to have a rotating marijuana leaf on a sign going down the road. It's a professional facility. I've seen their other ones. And like the lady said, we have a traffic issue. I have a reputation. When I have 200 to 300 motorcycles out in front, people are afraid to come in there. We've talked to several people that are locals here. Well, I haven't been to the River Bottom in 20 years. We get that every week. And then they come in there and they go, wow, this is really nice. But it's too late. I can't afford to keep it open, and here's an opportunity to bring in a new look into that area. I do agree with the traffic issue and stuff. It's getting heavier these days. We need to slow down that part of the road. Probably need to have a stop line on Hunt Highway just because the amount of traffic that goes through there. It is a safety issue at times. I'll give her that. But the branding of this town, as one gentleman said earlier and stuff, do we want to think of it as a marijuana dispensary town? Well, I'll tell you what we're thought of. We're thought as a prison town. And we are a prison town. Now, if a prison was going to go up today, and let's say we have none here today, would we allow it? I don't know the answer to that, but it's a compelling question. So what I want to see personally is the old Florence, historic Florence, do what we did last week at the when we had the home tours and stuff. That's how Florence, Arizona should look on the weekends. And I believe it can be there, but I can't do it myself, and I can't make it anymore. So an opportunity to sell this business came up, and I have to take it. So I appreciate your support on it. Thank you.
Thanks, and we'll miss you. Anyone else? Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing, and I'm going to ask the commissioners if they have any further questions.
I have a question for the applicant, please.
Yes, sir.
On the staff report, there's a list of 13 staff recommendations, and then a 14th one if we wanted to add any. I just wanted to make sure you saw those and were aware of them.
We have seen them and we've agreed to them.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Well, under those circumstances, I will take a motion.
I'll make a motion that we send a favorable recommendation for case PZC-6-14-CUP to the Town Council.
Second. Okay, I have a recommendation and a second, and all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Will you pass on a favorable recommendation to the Town Council? Moving on to the next item, I'm opening up to anybody who wants to make any comment to the commissioners or have any questions. Oh, I got to do the design review. Forgot about that. Yeah, item 6 is the case PZ07-14, which is a design review for the no, we did that.
Yeah, item 6A is the design review component that goes parallel with the conditional use permit.
That's the one we want a discussion on, a briefing on.
Yes, Vice Chair, members of the Commission. Item 6A, new business, PZC 0714DR, it's Ultra Health LLC. Presentation, approval, disapproval of a design review application by Duke Rodriguez of Ultra Health LLC for the subject dispensary proposed to be located at the River Bottom location, which is owned by River Bottom LLC. Address is 2501 North Pinnell Parkway Avenue in Florence. I think we've covered a lot of these issues, so I think, you know, we heard some comments in regards to access and circulation and parking, and I referenced some of those things before. I'm sorry that this site plan is probably not showing up as nearly as well as the one that's in your packets in front of you. But essentially, what they will be doing is defining an access point, defining their parking. They will have adequate parking. They will meet codes on their parking. They will meet codes on their circulation, their access. The building will be modified And you can see it completely transformed into still kind of a territorial-looking building, but definitely with some modern components added to it to break up the 4 elevations, and also the canopy features added. In addition, there'll be substantial landscaping added to the site, and there will be another perspective of the elevations. In the lower corner, you can see that there will be a monument sign for the business, and that'll generally go in the location of where there's an existing monument, but the proposed monument sign is smaller than the one that is existing. You do have a favorable recommendation from us on the design review. There really aren't any elaborate conditions there because they did a pretty excellent job of putting this package together, and actually we are impressed with what they've been able to do with transforming this site. And there is one notable condition there, that if the council doesn't approve the conditional use permit, then obviously this the design review would not be applicable. Obviously, the building would continue to operate as it looks today until something else transpires down the road. But this item is not a public hearing, but I would be happy to address any questions you might have, as would the applicant.
Will there be a fence around this?
Yes, they are looking at the site plan calls for a masonry wall around except for in the frontage. In the frontage, there's part of an existing wall, and there may be a short landscape design wall, but along the north, this is a weird shaped property, but essentially along the north and the south property lines, there'll be a 6-foot masonry wall.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
I just have a little concern about the security of this building. And if it's modified from what it is, I think it's very critical, and I'm sure you guys have been through this. It's very critical that this building is secure, so it's not easily accessed by somebody who shouldn't be there. You can scale a 6-foot wall pretty easily. You did mention it is mentioned in the brief that there are going to be security cameras and inside and outside of the building and on the property, so I think that adds to the security. And other than that, I don't have any more questions.
I'd just like to ask the applicant a question, if I could.
Yes, sir.
It looks like there's 6 staff recommendations, and then the 7th one being if we wanted to add any. And I just want to make sure that you've seen those and you're good with them.
We have seen them, we reviewed them, and we've agreed to them.
Great, thank you.
If you'd like us to comment about the security, because that security question has come up.
Yeah, just a brief, comment on it.
In every community that we've gone into prior to opening, substantially prior to opening, we do talk to local PD to have them review the floor plan. And they've signed off on the floor plans because at some point they'll have to have, if any kind of incident ever occurs, which it hasn't occurred yet, at least they'll have the floor plan prior to the building being completed. Secondary, the state requires to go through an inspection that has a certain amount of camera requirements. You must have access from every viewpoint. On all 4 sides of the exteriors, there must be cameras. Those cameras must provide for 24-hour, 30-day digital recording of all activities. So we've got motion detectors on the outside, cameras on the outside, and cameras on inside on every visible area. Every transaction, if I was a patient and I was buying product, every face could be captured on every transaction. All DVR, all digital forms, and we've had the cases where we can amplify it down to getting your face or a license plate in the parking lot. So security is a major issue for compliance with the Arizona Department of Health Services.
Thank you. Anybody else?
No.
Okay, I'll ask for a motion.
I'll make a motion that that we recommend to town council that we approve, what did I say? Yeah, okay. We recommend approval of the design review application PZC 0714-DR.
I'll second that for approval.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion's carried. Okay, now, we can open up to anybody here who has anything they want to bring up with the commission. Any questions that you may have or comments about the commission, feel free to speak up.
My name is Rakesh Pawar, and this is the fourth time I'm in front of the commission, and I want to thank you very much for your time and supporting us. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, I'll close that and open up to the commissioners. Any comments?
Well, I have a comment because this is sort of an emotional issue, this whole thing tonight about the marijuana. But for planning and zoning, I try to put blinders on and say, what's the code? And not what my personal opinion is, but what's the code here? And it's planning and zoning. I read the code over and over again, and there was no way that I could object to this, so, I have to approve it, and that's the reason I voted that way.
And I concur. It's just that, it's not our purpose up here to nullify a state law, even though it might be popular in Arizona to popular maybe to some people, but that's not our job. It's just basically the state approved it. They're telling us that it's okay with the state where it's at. There's no schools, there's no libraries. What else can you do? I mean, there's 24 zones. It passed 50 to 49. I mean, it's a state law. You fit all the bills. So that's why I voted for it.
And I did the same thing. I have a little familiarity with this kind of stuff because I have a friend who is a retired LA County sheriff, and I have friends in law enforcement in Seattle. I have friends here in law enforcement in the sheriff's department, and I understand that this isn't as easy as you're making it sound. However, just like these gentlemen said, the issue here is approving the CUP. It is within the jurisdiction of this commission, and that's the way we voted. And that's all I have to say. With that, we'll adjourn. Thank you very much.